Oh man, cap guns. Oh, I had a Hopalong Cassidy two-gun set.
Yeah.
I love those things.
Hey, that was my buddy Rick Barlow. He's an entrepreneur, filmmaker, very interesting guy, knows a lot about movies. Today we talked about The High and the Mighty, 1954, the John Wayne star-studded aviation disaster film. And we covered quite a few other topics as well. Sit back, I think you're going to enjoy it. Okay, it's recording now. I believe we may end up with an audio podcast. Well, it's good to finally talk to you.
Yeah, I've enjoyed your stuff for a long time.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Go ahead.
What got you into it? How did you happen to come up with this great idea?
Well, I love reading those movie synopsises that they have on imdb.com. And we were doing one at work, and I wanted to just see what I could do at home. We were doing one on archaeology at work, and so I just started up my own without a real idea of what I was doing. And it took, about 2-3 years to figure out which way I wanted to go.
How long have you been doing it?
Since 14. I started July 4th, 13, sorry.
Wow,
13,
okay.
yeah.
That explains it. You've
So,
gotten pretty good at it.
I'm pretty ashamed of that first 100.
I've probably heard some of them, but I can't think of a single one that I didn't enjoy.
Yeah.
I love all the information on the various actors, and that's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, that's some good stuff out there. It's amazing stories. Well, I guess we'll talk about how we want to do this. Lots of spoilers. I like to do lots of spoilers. Everybody, I figure the movie's 74 years old. If you haven't watched it by now, you're probably going to need a boost. So if you want to like talk about the movie, and I kind of do color commentary and throw in stuff, but you probably are a lot more familiar with this one than I am.
Well, yeah, that's fine. My recollection of them, of course, as a kid, I was a big John Wayne fan. I'm still a John Wayne fan, actually. Yeah. And so when that movie came out, of course, I went to see it. Now, I was only about 9 years old, but I lived in the south side of Chicago, and there was a movie theater 2 blocks from my home. And so I saw every movie. I mean, 25 cents to get in, 10 cents for popcorn, 10 cents for a Coke, and a Holloway bar. Remember those?
Yeah.
Maybe you don't, but they're like Milk Duds, And
Right.
I'd go to the movie at least once a week. My mom would say, go to a movie. So I'd grab 50 cents and off I'd go. And The High and the Mighty came out. Back then, a lot of times there were double features because the movies were pretty short, 90 minutes at the most. But this one was long, and it was a single feature. And of course, there were always some cartoons, a newsreel, and previews. So movies were a real fun experience. But the movie, I expected John Wayne, the hero, and yet obviously in this movie, he's got a very small part. It's a significant part, but it's a small part. And when I read the background of the movie, I understood it was the first movie that his production company produced, and he never planned to be in it.
Oh, okay.
I read that Spencer Tracy was supposed to have that role and backed out at the last minute, and John Wayne stepped in.
I couldn't see Spencer Tracy doing that role.
I can't.
Just doesn't fit him. Doesn't look right. Yeah, I've watched this movie several times before, but since I've been doing since the first time I watched it, I found out who Claire Trevor is and who what's her name, the lady, the other film, Janet Sterling, the other film North, and I'm starting to appreciate the like who these actors really were.
Oh
yeah, and that really
Claire Trevor, man. You've seen, of course, you've got to have seen Stagecoach.
Yes, yeah.
So Claire Trevor and John Wayne there, but also Lorraine Day, who back in the 50s, I used to see quite a bit on TV. I don't know how many movies she made, but I thought she did. The interesting thing about the movie is so much stuff got packed in to what, 2 hours and 15 minutes?
Right.
There must have been about 8 different stories going on. And it was kind of unique for a movie to be constructed that way back then, to try to get so many stories sort of folded in over one another. And when I went to see it, even though I was a little disappointed there wasn't John Wayne punching people or shooting people,
Right.
I still got all caught up in all those stories. And I thought, even though it's really corny, you know, you watch the movie now and there's a lot of corny stuff, especially the director put that little kid in the story who wasn't in the book. And I thought that was the corniest part of the movie, was the little kid stuff.
We're taking a message to his mother from his father.
Yeah. But I thought they did the tension, the disaster tension, really well. I mean, I could feel the danger, you know, the point of no return and the engine catching fire. And man, I thought that was darn good stuff.
Well, you know that kid is William Wellman's other son.
Yes.
So he put his own son in there, and then they followed that at least into some of the early disaster movies. Like they had the girl from the Love Boat as a terminally ill patient that had to. Helen Reddy was a nun and was taken care of in the back of an airplane like that.
Oh,
so they carried some of these trends forward into the other movies. And so even though the kid was just a throw-in, they picked up on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and I thought it was interesting. He had a cap gun on his holster when he went in. You know, thinking about the day they'd have him, the SWAT team would have him.
Oh man, cap guns. Oh, I had a Hopalong Cassidy 2-gun set. Yeah. I love those things.
Yeah, cap guns. Kids don't know the fun of that anymore.
Well, all of a sudden, you know, by the time I had my kids, the fashion was to not buy guns for your kids. Don't let kids play with guns. My God, we can eliminate violence all over the world if we simply don't let them play with guns. Right. And we played with guns when I was a kid, a lot.
We definitely played with guns.
Yes.
So yeah, this movie did really well as far as the Oscars. It got a lot of Oscar nominations. I guess it picked up one for Best Music, Best Song, High and the Mighty, but that wasn't even in the movie or the release now, the new release. So I don't think I've ever heard that.
Well, they've got, of course, John Wayne whistles it. But it was a big hit when the movie came out. I think that the year of the Oscars, the High and the Mighty was on the radio a lot. I mean, it was a hit song. It was an instrumental with whistling. Very
okay. Okay, so I didn't recognize that tune because I probably don't know what that song is. You know, even if I heard it. So I like the way though when he was nervous, he would fall back to whistling to kind of calm himself down.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Robert Stack in a role like that too. But again, I think the story was really the director did a good job establishing the tension, the fear, the disaster element of that movie. And I lost the thought there, but it'll come back.
Yeah. Anyway, they had to pull together. And another thing about this is like 17 passengers on not an international flight, although they did make them check their passports in the movie, even though you didn't have to in Hawaii at that time.
Are you sure of that?
Yeah, I looked that up. You didn't have to check. You didn't have to have a passport to go from Hawaii to the United States, even though it wasn't a state yet. It's a territory.
Right. Yeah. So. Yeah. I when I saw the movie, I watched it again about 2 weeks ago, and all of that go to immigration is what he said, and I thought, oh, that's right. I mean, both Alaska and Hawaii became states the same year, 1959, and this movie was 5 years before that. By the time I got to Hawaii, it was a whole different place.
Oh, I bet. I never made it out there yet. What's the guy, Douglas Foley, an old film noir actor that was the check-in clerk that knew everything about everybody. Good way to work in all the backstories there.
Yeah. See, now that's cool. That's an actor whose name I wouldn't know if it weren't for you just now. And that's the kind of great stuff I get from your podcast.
Oh, great, fantastic. Yeah, I was they get on this DC-4, and then they already explained at the beginning of the movie that John Wayne's kind of a broken man.
Yeah.
Because of the plane where he crashed, where his wife died and his son died. But he also, the Hobie, the assistant pilot or the third pilot, gives a good, the guy that looks like Liberace to me. Like he's
what's his name? Campbell or something? I forget.
William Campbell, I believe. Yes, William Campbell played Hobie Wheeler, the assistant pilot. But he did the other side of it. He gave his, learned to fly in World War One. Flew B-29s in World War II, B-17s, 20,000 open cockpits, barnstorming. Like this guy knows how to fly an airplane. So you got both sides real early on, even before you knew what the story was.
I was sort of surprised it was a DC-4 because I always, back then when I was interested in airplanes, I was fascinated by those DC-6s and DC-7s and Constellations that were flying around in the 50s and 60s. That DC-4 is not a very big airplane. I mean, that's a long way to go on a DC-4.
Yeah. Whoa. Like when John Wayne goes to the back to look for problems, and he opens the big compartment, and there's wires and cable pulleys back there.
Oh,
like, wow. Yeah, I guess you got to have the muscle to pull that thing up.
Whoa.
You don't see that anymore. Even when I was working on helicopters, it was all servo boxes and electricity that moved that stuff around. You didn't have to really pull the yoke back.
Interesting thing, because about 10 years later, there was a movie called Fate is the Hunter.
Yes.
Glenn Ford, written also by Ernest K. Gahn. And also I watched the John Wayne movie Islands in the Sky, also by great,
Yeah, I wanted to do when I wanted to do all the airplanes together.
Yeah, he had three scripts. Or three of his books turned into movies in a 10-year period, and every one of them is pretty good. I mean, I think people don't appreciate how tight those movies were back then, before people got into 2.5-hour formats where they just wander all over the place. And I mean, these are tight little movies. The High and the Mighty's long, but the other movies were shorter. And Fate is the Hunter with Glenn Ford, I think it's a 61 or 62 movie. That's pretty good.
And they have to convince Suzanne Flechette to go back into the plane after she survived the crash.
Yeah,
that's a great movie. And then there's another one that has Marlene Dietrich and Jimmy Stewart in it, and he's an engineer, and he predicts that the tail's going to fall off of this plane that he designed, and he has to get on the airplane to try and stop him. I forgot what the name of that one is. It's not Fear. It's not. Oh, it'll come to me in a little bit. But anyway, the whole point was they fly around and they land, and everybody thinks he's a crackpot. What's the name?
I got to see that one.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I got to check that out. I'll just check out Jimmy Stewart's filmography. It'll be in there.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of good ones, and they played right into that airplane or airport, whatever, 74, and then the airplane, the comedy. And I just was reading the other day that I forgot what I was reading for one of the movies. The airplane comedy is a remake of another movie, a serious movie that maybe had Glenn Ford in it too. It's a remake. It doesn't have the same title. No, Lloyd Bridges, that's who it was. And the William Stryker, it's about the same story.
Oh.
Yeah, so, but not with a comedy. So I have to look that up again too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I love watching. Of course, everybody calls them old movies. To me, they were just my movies.
Yeah.
Have you found His Majesty O'Keefe yet?
I've watched it, but I haven't got it. I haven't been able to find a new copy. I like to get them for free off the TV, but I haven't actually found a copy yet. I watched it. It's a good anthropology movie.
Anytime you got Burt Lancaster with that grin of his running around, fighting people, I love it.
Yeah, he has to fight the chief, right? They kind of get out there and wrestle instead of clubbing each other to death.
Yeah, yeah.
I like that. So, I don't know. Let's see. We got a lot of. So Claire Trevor in this movie, May Holtz, was a kind of like a has-been movie star, but she wasn't really like defeated or destroyed. You know, she was like, she embraced what she was. She was having a happy life. I thought that was, you know, kind of, like I said, I didn't see Key Largo until after I saw this movie the first time and find out about her, but she could almost be like a successful version of the lady in Key Largo. You know, the kind of she was a has-been singer there.
Yeah. I think I read in the book, it was indicated that she had, not only was she a has-been actress, but she had actually become sort of an escort. She'd become a pro.
Okay.
You know, the hint is when those soldiers see her walking through the lobby, one of them says to the other one, "Hey, do you remember that?"
Okay.
And that was the little nod to the point in the book where she's actually making her money on her back these days.
Okay. Same character she played in Stagecoach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, typecast, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Oh my goodness. So let's kind of get into the stories and go over some of the pulp couples and pairing. I've got a cheat sheet here. I don't know if you had fixed up one.
Nope.
But I know that later on in the movie we get to Regis Toomey, and I think they ripped his character off for a lot of the future Airplane movies. Regis was the kind of guy who was in a fedora and he kind of paced around the weather room and went over to the tower, kind of like the Regis comedy character.
Is he the guy that utters that corniest of all movie lines, "Goodbye, you ancient," or "So long, you ancient pelican"?
Pelican? Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
So long, you ancient pelican. I gotta remember to talk like that. That's what I'm trying. My goal in life is trying to talk to everybody like I'm a noir character, and see how they take it in modern society with a PC. Well, so
I think my son has seen more movies than anybody on earth. And when he hasn't seen this one yet. And when I told him the last line in the movie is "So long, you ancient pelican," he couldn't believe it. Oh man, that's a beaut.
Well, let's go. Let me just start out. They take off, and John Wayne is the co-pilot, but he's the veteran pilot. And Robert Stack he seems very competent as the pilot. You don't see any problems with him, and he's Elliot Ness. Why would we think Elliot Ness would have any problems? Then you got Wally Brown, he plays the navigator, and he's kind of henpecked, I guess, and just beaten down by his wife, William Campbell, who we've already talked about, and Doe Avedon, Miss Spaulding, the stewardess.
Yeah,
it was pretty interesting. You know how the standards change when the company comes in. He talks about how, you know, basically how good looking she is compared to some of the other stewardesses, and can't do that anymore, I guess.
No.
So they take off and everything seems all right, and then John Wayne gets the first vibration, sees the first vibration, and he picks it up and he looks at the navigator and he looks at the young co-pilot, and they don't notice anything.
Nobody else feels it. No.
Yeah. And I think the stewardess had noticed the vibration because she was looking in the mirror at the time. So it's like it's playing into, like, you know, those 20,000 hours of flying and flying by touch, you know, not the modern pilots that push the autopilot for takeoff and kind of that. I thought that. And so everything got underway, and then you start hearing all the backstories of the people in the plane.
Yeah.
And which one did you think was most interesting of those people back there? So many of them to choose from.
I kind of like I like the Claire Trevor story, although you don't get a lot of her story. The other one that interested me was is the actor's name John Howard with Lorraine Day, the couple. He wants to go mining in Canada, and she's a New York socialite.
Yes. Wife's Money. Lorraine Day and John Howard. Absolutely. Howard, the Rice family.
Yeah, I like that story. That was interesting. I didn't quite ever connect with the guy who was clutching the briefcase, the guy that had been working on. I mean, that was a big theme back in the 50s, you know, the horror that's been unleashed on the planet by by the scientists that have created atomic weapons. And we were still ducking under our desks for atomic bomb drills in school. Quick, get under your desk.
It's going to help you a lot.
Bomb going off.
That's about the same time the aliens and stuff were coming in, the benevolent aliens to try and get us to save ourselves, and the vicious aliens that were going to attack us and overpower us. And so I guess they just tried to jump on that trend.
John, you've got to get into some of those 50s science fiction movies. Invaders from Mars. Oh,
I was just looking at When Worlds Collide. I think I'm going to do a couple of those disaster ones.
This Island of Earth with Faith Demerge.
That's why I haven't done that. I don't want to say that name. I don't want to try and say Demerge.
You're gonna love those movies when you get into it.
Oh, I mean, I do already with the with the robot, with the clipper hands and everything attacking Dominique.
What was that? That was something planet, Forbidden Planet.
No, This Planet Earth.
Oh, could be
Forbidden Planet. So Leslie Nielsen.
Yes, Leslie Nielsen. I thought that was Forbidden Planet.
That is Forbidden Planet.
Yeah, Leslie Nielsen. I can't remember who else was in that, but Robbie the Robot was the name of that robot.
Yeah. No, I was thinking of This Planet Earth, where the aliens had these green kind of clipper hands.
Oh, okay.
With the big heads, and then that's the one where they dropped the like the Cessna or the Piper Cub out of the UFO at the end and let it just free fall and start flying.
Oh yeah.
I wonder if the wings would have come off on that. If they
I gotta find that movie again. That's a good one. You know, because it was so cheap and easy to go to the movies, and because you could stay and see a movie over and over again.
Right,
Once you were in the theater, you were in the theater. So some of these movies that I liked, I would see those things 3-4 times in a week. I'd go and see them twice at a time. It was great. I mean, those science fiction movies, I could not see them enough.
I was just interviewed a woman named Helen K. Garber, and she taught a NOR photography class out in Santa Fe that I took. And she was saying that too. She would go to the theaters when she was young and watch the movies over and over. And now her husband can't understand why she can watch a movie 5 or 6 times and look at different things. I'm going to watch the actors. I'm going to watch the background. Let's listen to the music and something. So it's a kind of a gift. I think that I sure watched a lot of movies when I was a kid. And I think that was the babysitter. They would drop me off at the movie theater, and I would just stay there most of the day watching the movie 3 or 4 times, eating popcorn. So I did the same thing.
Yeah.
But living down south, one thing that always galled me is they never would let me sit in the balcony. The balcony's where the blacks had to sit. Oh. And even in the middle of the day when nobody was there, they wouldn't let me go up and sit in.
Oh, darn.
And I always wanted to sit in the balcony.
Where did you live?
South Mississippi in Hattiesburg.
Okay.
Yeah. Strange times.
Yeah.
My favorite character really is the Jan Sterling one. You know, the former beauty queen is not as beautiful, and she's going to see William Hopper.
Yeah.
Paul Drake, great actor, you know, and she's worried that she's lost a step and he's not going to like her. So I like that story the best. Of course,
she's the only one that got an Oscar on that movie, I think.
Yeah. Well, she had a lot of
nominations, but she won.
When she pulled her makeup off, you know, that's pretty bold, you know, for somebody that the way they made her look, and she let them do that because she was a beautiful lady, and to let her look so bad
without her makeup, actually.
Yeah, she didn't look as bad as she thought she did.
Yeah.
And then they had the couple, just going back to my list here, the Joseph, Ed and Claire Joseph, were the happy travelers, you know, that had the like the complaining club. Yeah, Phil Harris and Ann
Right.
Doran.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was kind of an interesting story, kind of a philosophy for life. Well, it's really not that bad after
Yeah,
all.
exactly. Somebody's always got
Got a
a
worse
worse
story.
story.
And he
Yep.
told me, you'd mentioned the lady, let's see, Lorraine Day and John Howard. And
Yep.
for most of that movie, you assume that John Howard's character is an idiot and he's wasting money. And then at the end of the movie, they're like, well, maybe there'll be gold there. Maybe I will be successful. I'm not just depending on your money. I'm making my own, ideas. And I kind of like that transition on that couple.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's like he's trying to break away from he's married the rich woman and he wants to make it on his own.
right.
And you hope that she's discovered her heart, but she hasn't. By the end of the movie,
Right.
she's decided she's not going to go to Canada. He can go, but she's not. Yeah.
So that's a good one. And what other couple is there? Paul Fix is pretty darn good in this movie. Now, Paul Fix is
He's always good.
yeah, I guess he is. Really played Micah on The Rifleman, right? And I hadn't seen him in many movies.
He's in almost every John Wayne movie.
Okay, I was thinking of what's the other guy that Paul Fix?
The guy that plays an Italian in this movie is also in almost every John Wayne movie.
Right.
He often
John Quallen.
Is that his name?
Yeah, John Quallen.
Usually plays a Norwegian or something, but he's in Liberty Valance, and he's in. I think he might even be in The Searchers.
He's in The Searchers. He's one of the parents.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that's right. He's Hallie's father.
Yeah, and then I guess I'm trying to think of the other. Bruce Cabot's the other one that was in a lot of John Wayne ones. That's missing from here.
That's the John Wayne crew. Yeah, Bruce Cabot, Paul Fix, and
the other guy, Gonzalez.
Oh yes, him too. He's in the movie.
Pedro.
Isn't he the guy on the boat?
He is built the radio. So a lot of the old John Wayne gang in this one.
Yep.
So hey, that's pretty loyal, to take a crew like that. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a really, I don't know if you've read it, but there's an excellent biography of John Wayne. Came out about 3 years ago, and I read it. And John Wayne was a real professional. He loved acting. He loved production. And when he got a crew of people that understood him and that he enjoyed being with and that embraced his work ethic, he just loved working with them. So all those guys were people that were, part of his crew. And
right.
I believe this movie was the first movie his production company produced, but I think the name of his production company hadn't yet been named Bat Jack. I think he had a different name to the company at the time.
Okay. Well, I guess, yeah. And then he also kept the Bruce Cabot around for a drinking buddy.
Yeah.
It's good to have people you can hang out with afterward, too.
Yeah.
If you can afford it.
But that's a great biography, by the way, if you're interested. He graduated college. He was smart. And he just started doing odd jobs out on a movie lot, and just sort of fell into some roles, and it all happened from there. I mean, it's a great story, and he worked hard, and he didn't make that much money. He died not, you would just assume a guy like John Wayne would have quite a fortune, but he put a lot of money into the Alamo, which was his passion project, and that thing was a bomb.
Right. Pretty, yeah. I like it though. I enjoy watching it.
Me too.
It's not that great a movie, but he tried.
What?
And he made the Green Beret, which didn't go over too big either, And I like, of course, Hellfighters was in around that same time when he was playing Red Adair. It's a fun movie.
I like that movie.
Yeah, just sit down and I'm going to enjoy it. And
there just aren't too many. My favorite John Wayne movie is The Shootist.
Oh, great movie.
That's probably because of my age.
Yeah.
But I just think he did a great job. I mean, I don't think people appreciate what a good actor he is.
He really had some,
as superficial, but
yeah.
But
He played that cowboy role over and over and over till he was perfect at it.
Yeah.
And then so people thought that was the only thing he could do. But like when you mentioned The Shootist, he is fantastic and nuanced. And I love Lauren Bacall in that movie.
Yeah.
I think to me, if what I see out of that movie is if they'd have met at a different time, they would have been a couple.
Yeah.
And she's so good and he's so good. Of course,
Yeah.
Ron Howard.
Ron Howard was good.
Yeah.
Hugh O'Brien.
Right.
And
yeah.
The biggest ham bone in the world, Paladin, Richard Boone.
Oh, Richard Boone playing a rough old guy. And Jimmy Stewart had a little cameo, a little small part in that.
That was a great movie within a movie, I thought.
Yeah.
The interaction of those two old guys, and one of them giving the other one really bad news, and the other one trying to figure out how to handle it, and the doctor warning him, if I were in your position and I were your kind of man, I wouldn't go out that way.
Right.
That was a perfect movie in the movie, I thought.
Yeah, that's great. That's just a fantastic scene.
Yeah.
All right, so I hope we could talk for a long time as we drag it back to this airplane.
Yeah, okay.
So they're past the point of no return. The engine falls off and puts a lot of drag on them.
Yep.
And the navigator, which is, I have to look at his name again, Wally Brown. He's like an old veteran, and he starts, I love the part where he stands up with a sextant and looks out the top of the airplane bubble to fight his position, working with slide rulers and stuff.
Yeah.
I would go down in the ocean, I would fly around in circles or something,
Yeah.
So he calculates that they're 11 minutes short or 4 minutes short at first.
Yeah.
And then the Captain Robert Stack is just ready to put it in the sea just as soon as he can. And John Wayne wants to make for land. And I guess because the sea was rough and they were pretty sure it was going to break up or go under quickly. And just by some chance, this Pedro Gonzalez character was made a little radio set where he could monitor aviation when he was bored, and picked up on their position and got kind of a rescue flight going out to him. So what do you want to say?
Of course, the rescue flight would have been immaterial, really. I mean, I thought they did a great job of when they show this guy in the ship rolling back and forth, you can tell those seas are rough. The last thing you want to do is put that airplane in the ocean.
Yeah, when he clips
any chance.
He got the chair clips that he hooks in when he's really talking on the radio, and that would be a rough sea rocking a ship like that.
I think so. Yeah.
So, but if you bring, they were going into San Francisco. I don't know how big San Francisco was in '54, but are you coming in over a populated area? So that's the other choice, whether you're going to bring it in where you might land in a city.
Yeah.
Or not, and I'm not sure how the airport's rigged up out there, but
they, as I recall, one approach brings you in over the bay. So, but I haven't been there in a while. But
I think I flew into Oakland.
I mean, all of the considerations that are going on. That's why I thought they did such a great job. There's so many factors that these pilots have to consider. And there's one old hand there who knows how to compute the factors and who knows when to gamble and when not. And then there's the younger guy whose confidence has been fragile almost the whole trip, really.
Yeah, he broke. He definitely broke.
Yeah,
it was just too much for him. And then you weren't sure of the navigator and the way they juxtaposed the age and experience of the navigator with the third pilot. Hobie didn't have hardly any experience.
Yeah.
So he wasn't going to be much help to the crew. So
Yeah,
it really came down.
I thought it was a nice touch the way they had Hobie condescend and insult a John Wayne character.
Right.
I forget what the lines were, but at one point, in effect, he said, "You're washed up. You're the guy who crashed. Whatever you think doesn't matter. You're an old timer, and we're long past you." And yet, it was his instinct that ultimately saves the plane.
That was in the part where John Wayne was trying to rally him to help him get the captain to reconsider.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He turned him down flat.
Yeah.
And
just dismissed him out of hand.
Yeah. And so I like the way they how everybody stayed pretty calm as they opened up the the doors and started throwing cargo out. And
yeah.
I think that might be the time when I'd be like, I'm just going to sit back here and rest.
Yeah, I think I'd be under the seat at that point.
Yeah. It's like the old Alamo joke, like you're throwing somebody's got to jump for the airplane, and like I'm going to throw this guy out for me.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I guess that's actually in a William Wings, a William Wellman movie, the old Wings version with Clara Bow. Maybe I'm not.
That's one that I have not seen.
It's horrible. It's unwatchable as far as I'm concerned. Let me see if I can. I'm going to make sure I'm right before I say it.
That's a pretty old.
In 1927.
Oh, 27. Okay.
Yeah, it's William Wellman. And on the German Zeppelin, they throw out all the weight. They're trying to get away, and then they get to the point where they're like, "You have to die for the fatherland." So out you go, and these guys are just jumping out of the airplane or out of the Zeppelin. And I was like, oh. So I guess I
might skip that movie.
It's pretty terrible, actually.
Yeah.
I thought it was for such a great, supposedly, movie. I want to watch. I'll watch one of the old Errol Flynn ones if I want to watch the dog fighting.
Yeah.
Something like that. So they get everybody prepared, and I guess Paul Fix has found a reason to stay alive. I forget which woman is talking to him. Is it the stewardess?
Yeah, but also the little Asian woman. He's
right.
sitting next to that little Asian woman, and I think he's trying to calm her a bit and talking about the steak dinner once they land and all that.
Yeah, making plans, but he kind of like he had given up on life when he got there, when he was on the plane, and then he found a reason to keep on going. I like that. And what was the actor? Which one is he? Party. Robert Newton. It was supposed to be the actor and his wife Julie Bishop.
Long John Silver, yeah.
Yeah. I had to make a lot of notes. Yeah, he was scared, was white knuckling the whole flight, and had fear of death. And then when they got into the situation, he was the one that put on his persona, started acting, and didn't care about dying. I don't know if he was acting or didn't care about dying.
Right.
So he completely changed to keep everybody calm, and he'd never done a thing for anybody in his life.
Yeah.
At that point. So he played Long John Silver?
Oh,
Robert Newton?
Yeah. Walt Disney's Treasure Island,
Okay.
he played Long John Silver, and then that role was so popular, his performance, that they gave him a TV series. I think it was 2 seasons back in about maybe 55, 56. Long John Silver was a TV series starring Robert Newton. But the whole our matey stuff was all created by Robert Newton.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's some more to add in there. So they finally decide, I guess, the rescue plane gets there. And did you notice who the co-pilot was in the rescue plane?
Yeah, Alfalfa.
He wasn't working much, but that was good that he got that job.
Yeah.
And so Alfalfa comes to the rescue. That sounds like our gang episode.
Yeah.
They get him, and they find out that the navigator's made an error in his calculations of the, I guess, metrics and miles and knots, which is what NASA did when with a Mars probe, not so many years ago. So I guess it happens. Really? Yeah, they one was doing kilometers and one was doing miles. And they shot a probe straight into the surface of Mars.
Oh,
oops! So I guess that's a common mistake, I guess. So
an expensive one.
Yeah. So they pick up enough wind that they think they can make it. John Wayne finally convinces Robert Stack to go for it. They fly directly in. And so they do make it. They make it on the ground, and then there's they tell them it's less than 30 gallons of fuel left in the airplane when they hit the ground, when they landed. And then later on, as all the couples go away with their new life, and even the guy that was going to murder the airline executive, he's happy and ready to go back to his wife instead of, you remember Blackmore, I think his name?
Yeah.
Blackmore.
But I got the sense that the experience didn't change him much. It looked to me like he was still ready to kill that guy if he could get at him. And it was just a matter of being out of reach.
Yeah. And that's another juxtaposition they did, is they had the quiet fisherman, which was played by John Quallen. They take the gun, disarm him, and stop the crazy by the calm. So I was like, there's so much in this movie. I watched it last time before we were going to record, and then I watched this morning a little bit to make sure I knew everybody's name again.
David Bryan was another TV actor in the 50s that I remember, and I can't remember him ever playing a role where he wasn't the good-looking brave guy. Yeah. In this movie, he's petrified. I mean, Claire Trevor's just taking care of him. He almost becomes speechless in the last half of the movie, I think.
And he's the aviation guy, right? Also,
I think he's a stockholder. I don't think he's
okay. Not a flyer, but a businessman that owns aviation.
Yeah.
So, I guess nobody wants to talk to the press when they get off the airplane. They just want to go on and get on with their lives, get back to what they've learned. And of course, William Hopper's there to pick up Jan Sterling, and he's happy with the way she looks, to take her to his mountain cabin and live forever in paradise.
She'll get bored with that, but
that was kind of a long time before online dating. They were kind of like, letter writing correspondence.
Pen pals,
pen pals. And then they were way ahead of the curve. They could have done that on the internet now in a few minutes.
Yeah, and probably had a lot more options too.
yeah, little wider pool. So I was going to ask you. I usually ask this at the beginning, but what do you've said a few things about how well John Wayne acted and the complexity of the stories and how tight everything was. But what is the one thing about this movie that you just love the most? It just really pulls you to it. Why should other people watch this movie?
Well, as I said, I think we think that the movies we see today are just worlds ahead of what's been done in the past, superior technology and more sophistication in the stories, etc. But this movie does such a good job of creating the tension and the fear, and then using that to advance all of the stories in the movie. I just think it's a great example of what writing and acting can do without any fancy technology or sophisticated approaches. It's very, like I said, it's kind of corny, and yet it all works. And I just love the movie because it has heart that way.
Yeah.
With the exception of the little kid. Which
at least he sleeps most of the time.
But there's a lot of tender moments, tucking him in, and I mean that the director, I think, was excessive there. But basically, it's a movie with heart and tension, and it works. So
yeah, Imagine now if they made this movie with all the CGI and they would show, internal engine explosions and, people getting, like when she burned her hand with the coffee, the stewardess burned her hand with the coffee
Yeah.
when the plane lurched. Well, that would be somebody catching on fire and, jumping out of the airplane or something. I don't know. And I have this argument all the time with my adult children that CGI make movies better, or does it just make movies lazier? They just exchange the explosion for good writing and a good story.
Yeah.
Kind of the old Norma Desmond.
I think you could make that case that effects have replaced, to some extent, the quality of writing.
Yeah. And I'm not a snob. I'll go and watch, Iron Man or any of those Age of Thor, or Age of Ultron. I like to watch the explosion, but I don't pretend that there's, good writing behind it. Just It's fun.
I agree with you. Although I'm not a big fan of superhero movies, I tend to avoid them. I've watched a few of them and just sworn it off for good.
Yeah. I get it because I have to.
Excuse me. Sorry.
No, it's sorry.
That's the dude. The dude. I have to watch these movies so I can keep up with my cultural references. Figure out what people are talking about. Definitely.
And, so okay. Well, what else do we need to go over on this movie? We've hit most of the major people. I wanted to talk about one other guy that was on here. Let's see. He was actually the cargo clerk, which is that Robert Easton. He just had Robert Stack sign the weight for the plane. He said,
"Oh yes,
I told Orville. That guy's got that super interesting voice. It was more developed later on, but it's almost like a super country accent. He's in a lot of movies, but he just has that real unique voice that he's like Percy Hilton. You can hear when you hear him, you know exactly who it is. I think he was in Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea and stuff like that. And
I'm having a hard time.
Yeah, he's a pretty obscure character, but I like him because he's got that. I just wanted to throw him in there because he's got that wild voice on there.
Yeah,
and then of course we talked about just briefly how many movies this thing influenced. Let's see, Airport and Airplane parody. High and the Mighty served as a template for the whole Airport series, the Poseidon Adventure, the Towering Inferno, the Hindenburg, and the Titanic 1997 version. So this was like one of the early disaster movies before there were disasters. It was till the 70s before there were really disaster movies.
Right.
And I like how they took that template and I guess the first airport with the one with Dean Martin and everybody was pretty good.
The Haley book, I liked it. Yeah.
Okay. I never have time to read anymore. I wish I had more time to read.
Well, I'm retired, so I got a lot of time.
Yeah, I do too. But it seems like I'm always out cutting branches or something like that.
Well, but you're doing this stuff, which is really great.
It's when I run in and out between it. So this is my fun thing. But it seems like I'm always doing some more work around the house since I retired. And,
that'll happen to you. So here's my advice: sell the house.
I have been telling my wife, I want to move to a nice condo. It has a swimming pool. And you don't have to mow the grass. We
sold our house. We got a condo here in Phoenix, and all the work gets done for you. Do that.
Man, that sounds good. It
is good.
Or either that or get 5 acres that I can just bush hog with a tractor,
Oh, that still sounds like work for me.
Yes. Oh, Rick, well, it was great talking to you today.
Yes, it is great. It's someday I hope you'll be able to review this movie that my son and I made 20 years ago that we've not yet ever gotten distribution for, but I'm working on that. I thought I had a deal, but the distributor went bankrupt on me this summer before the movie ever got put up on iTunes and Amazon. But I'm working on finding a new distributor to put it up there for us.
So it's not a self-help process like like podcast, huh? You got to get an intermediary in there to do that for you.
Well, theoretically, I'm not even sure this is accurate. I was going to say theoretically, if I knew how to meet all the technical specs that these
Right.
platforms require, maybe I could do it myself, but I don't think so. I think they'll only deal with intermediaries.
Okay.
The company that I was dealing with was called Distributor, and its whole business was taking little indie movies that didn't get distribution and putting them up on these video on demand, Netflix, Amazon, and many other platforms where people can stream them. So I thought by this time people would be renting this movie and I'd have some revenue finally.
Right, yeah.
But
I'd love to see it. Yeah, that'd be good. I thought you were. Yeah.
It's called The Last Late Night. We shot it in '98, and my son wrote and directed it, and we co-produced it, and we took it on the festival circuit, won some nice awards, and we thought we'd get some distribution. But back then, it's before the video on demand stuff. '99 we premiered it, and 2000 it did many of the festivals. In fact, we got a lot of help from Bryan Cranston when we made the movie. He was shooting his indie movie at the same time. We met him at a seminar in Los Angeles, and he gave us all of his post-production list of people, the negative cutter and just everybody for post-production that he had used on his movie.
Uh-huh.
He referenced for us, and so he was a big help. And he was at one of our festivals, the Nashville Film Festival, where we won the audience award. Brian and his wife Robin were there because his movie had won it the year before, and they had invited him back. So we had a hell of a good time doing it, but it's never made $1, and it's a few thousand people saw it at various festivals, but other than that, nobody's seen the movie, and I'd like people to see it. It's a fun little movie.
That sounds good.
Yeah, dramatic comedy.
Okay. Good. Yeah, is there anything anybody can do? Is there a website or anything you want to send people to after this?
Well, there will be, but there isn't right now.
Okay. We'll keep that posted. Well, look, this was a lot of fun. I think let's do this again for, a few months.
Yeah, let's do it. When you get another old 50s vintage movie, maybe if you get into those science fiction movies, we'll talk through one of those.
Yeah, or I'll track down His Majesty O'Keefe and we can talk about that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it, and it was a lot of fun.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right, I'll talk to you before everything goes out.
Adios.
Bye-bye.